Ladies, let me tell y'all something today, and I want you to lean in close because this one right here, it's going to hit a nerve, touch a memory, and maybe even open your eyes. The title of today's message is simple, but it's powerful. Silence is a man's loudest goodbye. And I'll let that sit with you for a second. See, when a man goes quiet, I ain't talking about when he's tired or just watching the game. I'm talking about that deep silence, the kind where his words don't show up no more. His presence fades, his interest disappears, and he becomes a shadow of the man you used to know. That's silence right there. That's not confusion. That's not hesitation. That's not even a pause. That's closure. Men don't always say, "I'm done," out loud. They don't always slam the door, cause a scene, or write a long letter. Most men, they'll just go quiet. And that silence, it says everything. It says, "I begged you with my actions." It says, "I tried to talk, but you didn't listen." It says, "I warned you without words." It says, "I hurt and you didn't notice." See, a man will try. And yeah, I know we ain't always the best at expressing feelings, but when we care, we show up. We fix things. We try to solve problems. We stay through storms. But when a man feels unheard, unloved, unwanted, he don't always yell or fight back. He just shuts down. And the day he goes silent, that's the day he emotionally packed his bags. Now, some of y'all might say, "But why didn't he just say something?" Oh, but he did. He said it in the way. He stopped reaching for your hand. He said it in the way he stopped checking if you made it home. He said it in the way he stopped arguing, because even that was a sign he cared. He said it when he stopped coming to bed on time, when he stopped laughing at your jokes, when he stopped fighting for the relationship. A man's silence is not empty. It's full of words he tried to say, but couldn't find the room or the reason or the safety to say them. That quiet exit is his way of keeping his dignity while letting you go. And when he walks away in silence, oh baby, he already said goodbye. Now I ain't saying every man who goes quiet is an angel. Sometimes silence is guilt. Sometimes it's pride. But when a good man, a man who once loved loud, showed up strong, gave his heart, when he goes silent, trust me, that's not a game. That's grief. That's the sound of someone who's been let down one too many times. So if you're in a relationship right now and you feel him slipping away, don't wait for words. Listen to the silence. Read the signs. His silence might be screaming things like, "I needed you. I waited for you. I begged for a connection. And now I'm done." Let this be a reminder. Love don't always leave with a bang. Sometimes it leaves with a whisper. Sometimes the loudest goodbye comes with no sound at all. So if you're lucky enough to still hear his voice, still see his effort, Still feel his presence. Don't ignore it. Appreciate it. Because when that silence hits it, don't echo. It ends. When a man goes silent, it's rarely just about being quiet. It's deeper than that. It's a form of emotional closure that speaks louder than any words ever could. See, men don't always articulate their feelings the way women do. Society often teaches men to be tough, to hold it in, to push through pain without expression. So, when a man truly reaches his breaking point in a relationship, when he's tried, when he's invested, when he's shown up over and over again, only to feel dismissed, disrespected, or unseen, he doesn't always say, "I'm leaving." He just stops speaking. That silence isn't peace. That silence is his goodbye. This kind of silence doesn't come out of nowhere. It builds. First, he might stop sharing how his day went. Then he may stop asking about yours. He'll still be there physically, maybe eating dinner at the same table, sitting on the same couch, but emotionally, he's packing up piece by piece. Every time he was hurt and said nothing, every moment he felt unappreciated and swallowed it down, it stacked up. Silence becomes the storage of all those neglected emotions. And eventually, that storage gets full. When a man goes quiet like that, he's not trying to punish you. He's not playing games. He's not being petty. He's doing what he feels is the only thing left to do. Because to him, speaking hasn't worked. Maybe he's tried to express what he needs, and it was brushed off. Maybe he was vulnerable once and felt weak for it. Maybe he felt like every time he tried to bring something up, it turned into a fight or he ended up feeling worse. So eventually, he concludes that saying nothing is better than saying something that won't be heard. This silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the absence of hope. It's the emotional equivalent of someone slowly backing out the door with their head down, not wanting to make a scene, but knowing they can't stay. It's the closing credits to a story he once believed in. And the heartbreaking part, most people don't notice it until he's already gone, because we're conditioned to look for the dramatic exit. We expect breakups to be loud, explosive, filled with yelling and accusations. But when a man has loved deeply and gotten tired silently, his exit won't be a firestorm. It'll be a whisper, a void. And here's the truth. When a man says he's leaving, sometimes he's still open to being convinced to stay. But when he's silent, he's already left in his mind. His heart has already walked out. You might still see him. You might still touch him, but he's not really there. And once he's gone emotionally, there's not much that can bring him back. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too long without being cared for in return. A man's silence is his final boundary. It's the line he draws when all the others were crossed. It's not meant to hurt you. It's meant to protect him. He's preserving whatever dignity and strength he has left. He's choosing peace over chaos. And in that quiet, he's finally putting himself first. That silence might feel cold. It might feel sudden. But to him, it was a long time coming. That goodbye wasn't made in a moment. It was made over months, maybe even years of feeling like he didn't matter. And if you find yourself on the receiving end of that silence, don't just listen with your ears. Listen with your memory. Go back and recall the moments he tried, the times he reached for you, and you were too distracted. The conversations he attempted that were cut short. The pain he swallowed because he loved you. Understand that his silence is full of everything he didn't say, but felt deeply. It's not just an ending. It's a history of everything he hoped for that never happened. That's why silence is a man's loudest goodbye. It's not empty space. It's the loudest scream from a soul that's done fighting, done proving, done pleading. It's the sound of a man choosing himself after feeling like he was never truly chosen. So when you hear that silence, understand it for what it is. The last word in a conversation that never got finished. The quiet that says, I loved you, but I had to love myself more. When a man grows silent in a relationship, many often mistake it as indifference or avoidance. But what they fail to recognize is that his silence is carrying an entire history of unspoken pain. This isn't just him keeping to himself. This is him holding the weight of everything he wanted to say, but didn't feel safe or heard enough to express. His silence is full. It's not blank space. It's a message, a diary, a broken record that's been playing in his head far longer than anyone realizes. It's the result of accumulated hurt that he never unpacked out loud because either he didn't know how or he didn't believe it would matter if he tried. A man doesn't start off silent, especially when he loves you. In the beginning, he's open. He's trying. He communicates in the way he knows how. Maybe he's not using the perfect words. Maybe he's not poetic or emotional, but he's showing up through actions, through effort, through consistency. He listens, he participates, he initiates. But over time, if his presence is met with neglect, his effort with criticism, or his emotions with dismissal, that man begins to shut down. Not all at once. It's a gradual retreat, step by step, inch by inch, until eventually he's no longer showing up in the relationship, even if he's still physically around. I'm fine, that he says while he's clearly not, is a crack forming in his emotional wall. Every time he holds back his feelings to avoid a fight, or because he thinks you'll twist his words, that's a weight added to his silence. And one day, the weight becomes too heavy, and he lets the silence speak for him. You might look at him and think he's okay, because he's not arguing or complaining. But the truth is, he gave up trying to explain himself. His silence is not a lack of love. It's a result of too much pain that never found a safe place to land. When a man is hurting and he doesn't feel heard, he internalizes it. That's how he was raised. That's what society taught him. Be strong. Don't cry. Man up. So instead of saying, you hurt me, he swallows it. Instead of saying, I need more from you, he lowers his expectations. Instead of saying, I feel alone, he isolates himself emotionally and builds walls instead of bridges. This kind of internalized pain transforms into silence, and that silence begins to poison the relationship. And the worst part, most people don't realize how much pain was behind that silence until it's too late. By the time they see it, by the time they start to ask questions, he's already detached. His silence becomes a protective shield. It's not just about avoiding you. It's about protecting himself. He no longer wants to risk more hurt. So he stays quiet, not because he has nothing to say, but because he doesn't believe saying it will make a difference. It's a form of surrender, but it's also a form of self-preservation. You see, for women and many emotionally expressive people, words are the way to connect. They talk it out. They process it aloud. But for many men, especially those who've been hurt, conditioned not to speak emotionally, silence is the final stage of emotional exhaustion. When you see a man go quiet, don't assume he's fine. Realize he might be screaming internally. Silence is sometimes the loudest pain a man can experience, and it comes after he said all he could, tried all he could, and felt like nothing changed. This is why communication in relationships is so vital. Not just talking, but really listening. Not just waiting to respond, but hearing his heart. Because if a man ever feels like his pain doesn't matter, or his feelings are always minimized, he won't fight. He'll fade. He won't explode. He'll retreat. And once he's gone emotionally, the connection is already broken, whether or not he's still there physically. That kind of silence isn't an empty room. It's a graveyard of all the conversations he never got to have, all the affection he never received, all the appreciation he longed for but never got. So don't overlook a man's silence. Don't write it off as moodiness or stubbornness. Understand that it might be loaded with years of unacknowledged emotions. It's not just the absence of noise. It's the presence of pain. A silent man isn't a man who doesn't care. He's a man who once cared deeply, but lost faith that his care was being returned. His silence is his testimony. His silence is his goodbye letter, written in invisible ink. And once he gets comfortable in that silence, you may never hear his voice in your life again. Not because he stopped loving, but because he started healing alone. Before a man ever truly goes silent, his effort starts to fade. The decline doesn't happen all at once. It's subtle at first, so subtle that most people don't notice until he's already halfway out the door emotionally. The problem is, we often wait for loud, dramatic signs to realize something is wrong. But a man who's pulling away doesn't always cause chaos. Sometimes he simply starts doing less. He stops reaching out first. He stops making plans. He stops asking about your day. He stops trying to make you smile. And because it's not an explosion, people think it's not serious. But the truth is, that quiet fading of effort is the prelude to the silence that follows. In the beginning, a man who's in love is engaged. He wants to be around you. He checks in. He calls. He asks questions. He pays attention. His effort is his language. That's how many men express love, not through poetic words or dramatic declarations, but through consistent action. So when those actions start to decline, that's not laziness or distraction. That's emotional fatigue. That's him starting to lose his connection to the relationship. You might still hear him say, "I love you," but his actions won't back it up. And it's not always because he stopped loving. Sometimes it's because he no longer feels like his effort is valued or noticed. It's important to understand that a man won't keep investing where he feels unappreciated. At first, he'll keep giving despite being ignored or misunderstood. He'll try again and again, hoping things will change. But when his efforts are met with indifference or criticism, a part of him begins to shut down. He starts thinking, why bother? And that's the most dangerous thought in any relationship. Because once a man no longer sees the value in trying, it's only a matter of time before he stops trying altogether. And when the effort stops, it's the first sign that the relationship is in serious trouble. Effort is the heartbeat of a relationship. It's what keeps love alive, even through the tough times. When a man stops putting in effort, it's not because he's suddenly uninterested. It's because he's been hurting quietly. Maybe he's been asking for emotional connection and not receiving it. Maybe he's been trying to be seen, but feels invisible. Maybe he's tired of repeating the same conversation, hoping things will change. That exhaustion builds up, and eventually he decides to retreat. Not always physically, but emotionally. You'll start to notice it in the little things. He stops remembering small details. He stops asking how you're doing. He's not angry. He's indifferent. And that indifference is dangerous because once a man goes from being emotionally invested to being emotionally numb, his connection to you is already weakening. And by the time the silence comes, it's not a shift, it's a conclusion. He already gave up, and you just didn't see it happening because the decline was quiet. What makes this even more painful is that many women don't recognize these changes until it's too late. They think he's just busy. They think he's stressed. And maybe he is. But behind that stress is often a deeper frustration. The kind that says, I've been trying, and it never seemed to matter. That's when you see a man go from showing up every day to just going through the motions. He's present, but he's not there. His body is around, but his heart checked out weeks ago. You try to talk, and he gives one-word answers. You try to connect, and he's distant. That's not rudeness. That's a slow goodbye in progress. The saddest part is that some men don't even know how to explain what they're feeling. So instead of expressing their needs, they just stop expressing anything at all. That fading of effort is their silent cry for help. It's them saying, I don't feel safe to be vulnerable anymore. And once a man feels emotionally unsafe, he builds walls. Not out of pride, but out of protection. Because to him, expressing vulnerability and being met with rejection or indifference is worse than silence. So he chooses the silence, not because he wants to leave, but because he no longer feels like staying makes sense. This is why effort should never be taken for granted in a relationship. Every call, every text, every small act of love, it all means something. When that begins to fade, it's not a coincidence. It's a sign. A man who once did everything to keep the bond strong is slowly becoming someone who no longer believes that bond exists. And if that slow fade goes unnoticed long enough, it turns into silence. And when that silence arrives, it's rarely reversible. So if you're seeing a man pull back, don't wait for him to vanish completely before you pay attention. Don't wait for the silence to become deafening before you start to ask why. Look at the shift in his effort. Listen to what his absence of action is telling you. Because before a man ever says goodbye with words, he says it through his distance. And by the time you notice the silence, his heart might already be long gone. When a man stops arguing or trying to fix things in a relationship, it doesn't mean he has found peace. It often means he's given up. There's a common mistake people make, thinking silence equals everything being okay. But the reality is, silence can be far more dangerous than an argument. Because when a man is still fighting, still raising his voice, still trying to explain his side, he's showing that he cares. He's showing that he still sees value in the connection. He's still invested. But the moment he goes quiet, the moment he stops engaging in conflict, that's when the relationship has reached a deeper level of trouble. People assume arguments are signs of dysfunction. And yes, some arguments are toxic. But in many relationships, disagreement is a form of passion. It's a way two people are trying to be understood, to get back on the same page. So when a man no longer bothers to clarify, to defend, or even to express disappointment. It usually means he no longer believes it will make any difference. He's emotionally checked out. He's tired of trying. He's not silent because he's calm. He's silent because he's done. This kind of silence isn't peaceful. It's loaded. It holds all the words he wanted to say, but didn't. It holds all the fights he walked away from. Not because he was mature, but because he no longer had the emotional energy to go back and forth. He stopped explaining, not because he had nothing to say, but because he stopped believing you were really listening. When a man gives up on being heard, he stops speaking. And when he stops speaking, he's preparing for his exit, whether that's physical, emotional, or both. There's a big difference between peace and silence. Peace is mutual understanding. It's resolution. It's where both people feel heard and respected. But silence after conflict, especially when only one side has disengaged, is not peace. It's defeat. It's resignation. It's the moment when he says to himself, no matter what I say, nothing will change. And that's the most dangerous place a relationship can go, because at that point, the emotional connection has been severed. Not suddenly, but slowly, through a series of unmet needs, repeated misunderstandings, and unhealed wounds. When a man stops arguing, you have to ask why. Is it because the issue was resolved? Or is it because he's lost hope? That difference matters. You can recover from an argument. You can't always recover from apathy. A man who no longer cares enough to speak is no longer in the same relationship. His body may be there, but his mind is already moving on. He may still sleep beside you, still eat dinner at the same table, still respond to day routines, but emotionally, he's somewhere else. And you can feel it in his tone, in his eyes. The silence lingers longer than it should. There's also a level of emotional self-protection that comes with this silence. When a man has tried to fix things, to express his needs, to make the relationship work, and he continues to feel shut down or misunderstood, he starts to build emotional armor. Arguing becomes draining, not worth the effort. He begins to believe that silence is the only way to preserve what little strength he has left. Not because he doesn't feel anything, but because he's felt too much. And he's tired of being only one fighting for understanding. It's painful when the silence sets in because it's not loud or explosive. It's quiet and cold. It doesn't break things. It freezes them. You begin to live in a house where everything looks normal on the outside, but inside there's emotional distance so wide it feels like strangers sharing a space. The laughter fades. The spontaneous touches disappear. The long talks become short nods and empty responses. And no one dares to ask, what happened to us? Because deep down, both already know the answer. The argument stopped. the noise stopped. But so did the love, the effort, and the hope. So if you ever notice the arguing has stopped, and not because things were fixed, but because he simply stopped engaging, that's your warning sign. Don't assume it's better. Don't celebrate the quiet if it came at the cost of his emotional presence. Instead, take a step back and ask yourself, has he gone silent because he feels safe or because he feels defeated? Because once a man has given up emotionally, there's often no coming back. The silence becomes permanent. The goodbye, though unspoken, has already been said. Understanding this difference could mean everything. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it's just the loudest way someone can say, I don't see the point in speaking anymore. And if you're not careful, you'll only hear the real message long after he's already gone.